And I made that point. You're not really supposed to make points when you're cross-examining witnesses. You're just supposed to ask questions. And so I did get rapped on the knuckle by the judge a couple of times because I made statements rather than asking questions. Essentially, through examining the testimony of Val Bourdon and Jeremy Searle, to say nothing of the police officer who was a prosecution witness, showed that I can't be heard inside the church, can't really be seen inside the church, at least not in the sanctuary area. I did forget one thing. So Val Bourdon's answer was yes. Yes, I feel terribly uncomfortable, and that was the same answer that Jeremy Searle gave. So as I said, I pointed out that, that's got nothing to do with what this law's about. That's another thing altogether, which I wasn't supposed to do. And the judge essentially politely pointed out to me that you're not supposed to do that. You're only supposed to ask questions. So the question that I asked Val Bourdon was, has a church service at the Unitarian Church of Montreal ever actually been disrupted as a result of my protest? And I qualified that by saying, has a church service ever stopped and started again as a result of something I'd done during my protest? And the answer was no. So, here's this law, and the law is clearly about, prohibiting the disruption of church services. And here's Val Bourdon acknowledging in his testimony, in his answer to my question, that no church service had actually ever been disrupted. Well, that's the end of that trial. So the lawyer, who was a young rookie Crown prosecutor, he actually treated me very well. He was very honorable and honest and everything with me. He wasn't an asshole prosecutor like some of them are. When it became clear that he had zero case, he very honorably stood up and said to the judge, Your Honor, I haven't been able to prove my case. There were 4 or 5 points of law that I had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, and I cannot prove even one of them. Therefore, I would like Mr. Edgar to make a motion of non-suit. And by that, what he meant was, and this was something I wasn't even aware of because I hadn't, thoroughly researched all legal procedure and so on. Essentially, if a prosecutor, completes his prosecution testimony and argumentation and so on, in the examination of the witnesses after that, it becomes clear that he's got nothing, essentially, or very little. Essentially, what it comes down to is if there is reasonable doubt, if the defendant, believes that, he or she has established reasonable doubt, then the defendant can make this motion of non-suit, which essentially is a motion calling on the judge to end the trial, and essentially the defendant is acquitted because the prosecutor was unable to prove his or her case against the defendant. So the judge explained this to me, and my response was, well, Your Honor, as you know, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms does say that a defendant has the right to a full and complete defense. I believe that's the exact wording, full and complete defense, and I want to present a defense. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to really rub these assholes' faces in their own shit, I really wanted to show that these people misused the Canadian Criminal Code in an effort to shut down a legitimate protest against clergy misconduct. You know, there's a lot of facts that weren't brought up in the prosecution phase of the trial that I wanted the judge to know about, because I wanted the judge to, at the end of the trial, besides finding me innocent, to, you know, basically say something about this abuse of the Canadian Criminal Code, this misuse of the Canadian Criminal Code in essentially, you know, a malicious prosecution, legal bullying that sought to deny my constitutionally guaranteed civil right to engage in peaceful public protest. I wanted that to really be underlined, you know, that the Montreal Unitarians had misused the SPVM police force, they'd misused the criminal justice system in an effort to silence my protest outside the church. I wanted to make these arguments in my defense. And the judge actually agreed to me being able to present a defense. And we set a date for the defense, which was several months later. I believe, if I remember correctly, the trial date we're talking about here was in April of, I think, 2003. And so the judge set a date, if I'm not mistaken, for sometime in December of 2003 so I could present my defense. So I was all set to present a defense. And a few weeks before, you know, actually presenting my defense, I went to the courthouse just to verify the dates and everything, make sure everything was on track. And the clerk at the courthouse said, "Oh, well, Mr. Edgar, you've been acquitted." I said, "What?" You know, I was supposed to be able to present a defense. And they said, no, you were acquitted a few days later. Apparently what happened is the prosecutor, who obviously didn't want, you know, the whole truth to come out in this trial, and basically just wanted to put this fiasco behind him, had gone back to the judge and had made a motion for an acquittal, and the judge had granted it. So essentially the judge went back on giving me the opportunity to present a defense. You know, the judge knew what was going on. He knew that I just, like, totally, you know, just basically show how these people had cynically and outrageously hypocritically misused the Canadian Criminal Code in an effort to, you know, put an end to a legitimate protest against clergy abuse and so on. And, you know, I guess the judge didn't want that happening either, perhaps, had second thoughts about it. So I was, without my knowledge, acquitted a couple of days after, you know, basically destroying Jeremy Searle and Val Bernard's ludicrous testimony in court. So that's that story. So anyway, getting back to other SPVM shenanigans, there's actually been a fair number of them. That's just one misuse of SPVM police power that I can talk about. And it's not just a misuse of SPVM police power, it's a misuse of the court system. Never should have gone to court. The prosecutor really should have dropped the charges. I actually did try to persuade the prosecutor to drop the charges. I even told him, you know, I can't be seen, I can't be heard, and so on. But he said, no, I got witnesses, you know, this is going to trial. So I went to trial. And at the end of the trial, the prosecutor had nothing, not one, not even one of the 4 or 5 points of law that he had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt was he able to prove. I basically totally destroyed every single point of law that he had to prove with my cross-examination of Val Bernard and Jeremy Searle. I guess I could go on and on about SPVM this and SPVM that. But the good news is that it's been pretty much a year since the last time the SPVM sent the car here with police officers whose mission was to try and dissuade me from protesting. So that's a nice milestone. And of course, the fact that it's been a full year since the SPVM have been here, a full year of doing, what I've always done, display a few freestanding picket signs, have some chalk slogans. Well, I didn't always have chalk slogans. It was actually some time before I started putting down chalk slogans. I see my battery's almost done here. We're almost at the end of another half-hour segment. So I think we're going to wrap this up pretty soon. Keep this protest relatively short. Got some very good material in the video, including the Francis Deverell conversation. So we're going to wrap this up, I think, after an hour of protesting. Probably won't start another... I think what I might do is come back later. I might go have a coffee, come back when people are exiting. So yeah, I think we're done. I think we're done for today. And we're done talking about the SPVM for now. My point was, which I let slip, my point is this. It's been one full year since the last time the SPVM intervened in my protest. And I've been doing what I've been doing for at least the last 5 or 6 years of this protest, which is, walking back and forth with picket signs, having a couple of, or a few freestanding picket signs like these ones, and some chalk slogans, and so the question rises, why is it that the SPVM in previous years, going back in 2015, maybe not so much in 2015, but if we go back to 2012 and previous years, 2012, 2011, 2010 for sure, and then previous years right back to 2000, why did the SPVM intervene and try to shut down my protest? They had zero grounds to do so as far as I'm concerned, and yet they did. So, clear abuse of SPVM power. That's it.